everyone. I was having a little bit of trouble getting my software to connect because I had to unhook things for our house showing and then this morning hook everything back in. So let me know if you're having any trouble seeing what's going on, okay? So I'm scratchy today. I am Sara Sach, and welcome to the Coffee and Crochet podcast with Sara. It's showing that I have excellent condition for our today's video and our internet, so I'm hoping everyone can see what is going on. And we're just going to jump right into it and get going. I wanted to update you just a little bit about what's going on with our move from Colorado back to Oklahoma. We're also going to talk a little bit more about scrap yarns, how we can deal with them, and some fun things that we can make with them. And then I'll show you what's new this week at Posh Pooch Designs. But the first thing we need to do is clink in. Clinkety, clink, clink, and clink. I'm drinking good old Folgers coffee today, but I added a little bit of my coconut creamer in there, which is one of my favorites. Kim, you're saying you can't hear me. Check your setting and make sure that your sound is on. Is everybody else being able to hear me? Sometimes when you are on, the volume is automatically goes off, and so you have to turn it on. All right. Okay, good. Kim can hear me now. Kim needs to hear me. Okay, so just in case you didn't hear that, we got a lot to talk about today. I've got my breathe shirt on because there's a lot happening and I just need to stop and breathe. Alrighty, so what's going on today? And if you didn't clink in, make sure you did. Clinkety clink clink. All right, so this weekend we had a house showing on Saturday and Sunday. We had lots of good traffic. Hopefully we'll get more traffic this week and get this house here in Parker, Colorado sold so we can get into our new house. My husband actually was down in Oklahoma this weekend and yesterday getting the new house inspection and all of those things, and I'm super excited about the new house. One thing we did discover is that this room, I believe it's approximately 16 wide by 14 deep. The new room is going to be just a smidge smaller at 14 by 14. So I will not have the length, but it's okay. Everything's still going to fit, and it's a beautiful room. It has absolutely gorgeous wooden French doors. So I'm really excited about setting up the new yarn studio or new yarn room when we get there. And I've already decided I'm going to show you the empty room, and then I'll show you the process of putting everything in there and all of that. It's going to be super duper fun. All right. And don't worry, I'll bring you along with me on a lot of other things as well. Okay. Now, let's get into, the other thing I want to talk to you about, I just looked at my notes. There will not be a big giveaway for the month of May. And that's because of everything going on, what we have with our move. And I've got people in and out of my house looking at my house. And sometimes I have to leave and sometimes I have to come back. What did she ask? What brand was my creamer? The coconut creamer is one that I get from Sprouts. It's an all-natural milk-free creamer, and you can find it over by the Coffees and Creamers. And it's a really good, strong coconut flavor if you like coconut. I don't remember the brand exactly. I just know I got it at Sprouts. Okay, anyway, back to the giveaway. For the month of May, there will not be... Wait, are we into June yet? No, this is May. I'm so confused. I'm lucky to know what day of the week it is right now. Anywho... we're not going to have a giveaway for the month of May. And then next month, after we're settled, I'm going to do a big giveaway. soon as I find where the post office is, there in close to where we're going to be living in Tuttle, Oklahoma, which is right outside of Oklahoma City. So as soon as I find the post office, I'll find it, don't you worry. So anyway, I know it's kind of disappointing not to have a giveaway for this month, but it just is not possible with having to, I'm having to continually take down my stuff and all my equipment and everything so people can see the room and then all of that. Tammy says she wants to see me packing up my yarn. Well, I'm not going to be packing it up. We hired someone, a company, to come in and do all the packing for us. But I'll take a picture or some video of them doing this room as well. I'll get their permission first, though. Don't worry about that. Yes, Kim is just reminding me today is May 3rd. Actually, I should know this because yesterday was my sister Lisa, who's gone on to heaven. It was her birthday yesterday, and I get a little emotional during that time. You know, it's hard to lose a sibling, and I'm sure lots of you have lost, like, my mom, my sister's already in heaven, and my dad. And it's hard when loved ones go when their birthdays come around. So I've kind of set that aside to take care of my feelings later. Okay, I know that sounds odd, but I loved my sister. She was the oldest, and I was the youngest. My mama called us the bookends. So anyway, moving right along. Now, I wanted to talk to you a little bit because I've been getting lots of questions about, you talked about winding your yarn on your winder. What do we do if we don't have one or really don't want to get one? Okay, so I'm going to show you this picture real quick. This is what I call my crazy yarn balls. Sometimes I wind them up with just one strand, and they're just all the leftovers all wound up. Sometimes I do 3 strands together just for fun, and so I'm prepared with some crazy ones with 3 strands of yarn. Now these 2 I wound with 2 strands of yarn. These are all acrylic yarns. They're all medium weight number 4, but I wind them up in these crazy balls sometimes. I don't always use my winder. Now it's easier to store because when you make the yarn cakes, they're flat. So when you do the balls, they don't store as easily, but I just throw them in a basket like I showed you, and I'll show you that in just a minute again. But I wind them up into these, what I call crazy yarn balls. Sometimes 1 strand, sometimes 2 like these 2, and sometimes 3 like this one. Then I'm prepared for lots of different projects. All right, you don't have to have a winder if you don't want to. You know, you don't have to spend the money on that. There are a lot of products out there that we spend money on that we don't really need. And I'm guilty of that as well. Because I want to try new things. I want to try these different techniques and things and different ways of doing things. Now, my yarn winder was a gift, so I didn't pay for it. Okay? So, wind you some crazy yarn balls. And I'll show you this basket. This is one of my baskets that I use for my crazy yarn balls. And you can see I've got some test projects going in here as well, because I like to test things out, see what works and what doesn't. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what can I make with my leftover yarns. Oh, and another thing I will tell you, when I'm making these crazy yarn balls, I will knot the yarn individually. You can see I've got a knot right there. And then when I go to use it, I'll cut that and use a different join, depending on what I'm making. Just FYI. I know you shouldn't do knots in yarn, but I do sometimes. I've always been a little bit of a rebel and a rule breaker, so. All right, so I put together a list here of the 10 things that I like to do with some of my leftover yarns. One of them is to make hair scrunchies for your hair. You can take those elastic bands, you can crochet around them, add beads and all kinds of things, and it takes very little yarn. Making things for your hair. You can make ribbons, just make chains, tie them in your kids' ponytails or just around their hair. Make a little necklace or something. Just use up your beautiful extra yarns. Another thing I like to make is coasters and small doilies. You can whip up a bunch of these granny squares. We talked about these last week. They make great coasters. Now this one's acrylic, and I use it just so I don't mess up my new table. So I do have a new table. It's all nice and white instead of the beige cloth that I was using. And I wanted to do that because some people requested more of a lighter background in my videos. But granny squares make great coasters. It's also a great thing to whip up a bunch of granny squares and then stitch a crazy blanket together. And when I say crazy, I'm not meaning to be derogatory in any way. I'm pretty crazy myself. My grandson says I'm weird, but in a good way. But I love to take these, make a whole bunch of granny squares in different shapes and sizes and stitch them all together. All right, so coasters and small doilies. Super easy to make. Rita says she makes knots too. You are my people. All right, another thing is the small bags. It's really fun to make useful bags, and some of them are smaller, and you can make bigger bags as well. But just like one of the patterns we did yesterday was the sock bag, you can use any kind of yarn to make that. And it's a great project to do and also something useful. Okay, another one is what I call keychains or keychain dangles. And that's just things that you can add to your keychains to make them fun. You can make little bumblebees or flowers. And the neat thing about this is you can make these and add it onto any kind of a keychain, put it on a gift, and they'll have that little keychain as a reminder of you as well as the gift. Okay, so those are fun little things that you can make. Another thing that you can make are washcloths. And this is really a neat thing for me because I really prefer a crochet cotton washcloth and dishcloth opposed to ones that you buy in the store. All right. And I like them because when you make them up, they're kind of, you might even say holy. And then you put them through the wash and that sizing comes off of them and the cotton kind of absorbs and makes a nice thick washcloth. And if you think it's too thin, make two, put them together, and then you've got a double washcloth. I love to make washcloths with my leftover cotton yarns. And I do have friends who really like to use acrylic yarns for their dishcloths because they're a little bit more textury, and so you can scrub with them as well. Also, cotton has a tendency to absorb the smell, so you're going to have to wash them a little more often, where acrylic yarns don't do that. And again, that's just a preference of what you like to do. Another thing that's fun to make is cut cozies. Have some people over, make coffee and tea, give them each a cup cozy so they can take it with them. I like to buy those disposable coffee cups. They're just paper coffee cups, and then you can make a cozy for it. They can have their coffee or tea and take that cozy home with them. Because I'm all into giving people something to remember the fun time they had at my house. Or I hope it was a fun time. We used to have a crochet group that we used to get together at a couple of different coffee shops around Parker, and we would crochet and have coffee. And it's so much fun to remember those times together. All right, now the next thing I like to make are things for my dog. I love to make decorative collars for my puppies, adding flowers and bows. The only thing about that is be very careful when you're making these decorative collars or bandanas with buttons. Some dogs are not affected by it. Maximo's not a chewer at all, my little white chihuahua. I don't have any problem putting a button on his. Rosie, on the other hand, she can't stand it. She has to chew on the button. So be careful when you're making anything for your dogs in adding buttons or things that they can chew on. But I love to make little collars. And one of the things I really enjoy making is making a collar, making it into a headband for me, and making Rosie a matching one. I love doing that because they're pretty much made the same. You can just add a tie, make a little bow, or you can make it a slip-on. And that's a really fun thing to do with your leftover yarns. All right, another thing we talked about along with the scrunchie is the necklaces. This is a great thing when you're learning to crochet. or trying to teach someone to crochet, because the first thing that you need to learn is how to chain, and how to chain a chain that your tension is even. And making necklaces is a really fun way to do that. And you can add beads, buttons, anything to that necklace, little rings, all kinds of little things, adding it to while you're doing a chain, and make a really fun necklace. I like to make really long ones and add lots of beads so I can wrap them around my head several times. It's a lot of fun. And these chains can also be made into, say, just a tie belt around a new dress. Say you bought one of those shift dresses that are straight and you don't like the way it's hanging, you can just make a little chain belt, add some beads on it, and you've got a beautiful thing made from your scrap yarn. The other thing is skinny scarves. Up here in Colorado, I wear my skinny scarves all the time. Down in Oklahoma, I didn't wear them quite so much because it is a little bit more humid. But I love skinny scarves. They're just thin scarves that are, between 1 and 3 inches. You can add ruffles, you can add beads, you can add bows, all kinds of fun stuff to them, and use up your leftover yarns, add a pop of color to your outfit. All right, so that's another really fun thing. And if you make those skinny scarves that are about 3 inches wide, you can also use it for a headband around your head. As I wear those when we used to ride in our convertible all the time. And then, of course, my hair was flying everywhere, but it was still fun. Another really fun thing to make with a lot of your leftover yarns that are really tiny pieces, maybe just a couple, 2 or 3 yards, is to make bows and to make flowers, butterflies, little tiny appliques that you can just whip up a bunch, put them in a container, and then when you want to make something, you can go through that the same way you go through your buttons and add them to lots of different projects. If you're making a garden bag, make some little bumblebees or some little flowers, butterflies, and put them on that garden bag. And then you can go out and pick up your stuff, because I like to use a garden bag to pick tomatoes and things. And if you make it out of jute, it's even better. So it's a lot of fun to make a lot of little appliques, can be added to hats, headbands, blouses. And when I wear a cardigan sweater, I almost always make a couple of flowers and I pin them on with safety pins underneath so I can take those off when I wash the sweater. And I have a little container that I just throw all those in and use them as I need. And it's a great way also if you're watching a movie or something, you just want to keep your hands busy, grab some of your extra yarn and whip up a bunch of different appliques, and you'll always have them there. And make sure you keep safety pins by, and you can just pin them on whatever you want. And then if you want to wash that bag or whatever you're making, take those appliques off and wash it. I like that idea. It's one I've been doing for a lot of years. All right, now, number 10. What is the last thing I make with all my scrap yarns or stash busting yarns? I make whatever I want to. Do you know that any pattern that you've ever made can be made with scrap yarn? Any blanket, any hat, any sweater, anything, pillows, socks, anything can be made with your leftover scrap yarns. The key is just to make sure you do a good join, like a regular yarn join, or I was going to say French join. It's a Russian join. I'm thinking French knots. But anyway, any pattern you've ever made can be made with your leftover yarns. The difference is you'll have to join them together. And I love doing this. I love taking a hat pattern or maybe a purse, or like a container for the table, baskets. I love making those with my scrap yarns. To me, it's just like creating. It's like working with yarn as paint and your creation as your canvas. And you grab all these colors of yarns that you think won't go together, and then as you're working it, they actually do. And it happens a lot when I'm making these, because I've got 2 strands together. I've got blues and purples and blacks and pinks and all different colors in these yarn balls. And then I just start working with them. And before you know it, you've got a beautiful creation with colors you never thought would go together. And that's why I like to wrap them like I showed you some with just 1 strand, some with 2 strands, and some with 3 strands. And it's just kind of random. It's random. And then before you know it, you've got this beautiful bag or basket or blanket that you've done with these interesting colors. Another thing that people forget is that it's okay to put your ombres and variegated yarns that are left over and mix them in with your solid yarns. You'd be amazed how beautiful some of those look. One of the things I really love to do is to take variegated yarn and put it with a white or a black yarn that's just solid, you know, and wind them together. And then when you're creating something, that black yarn makes the colorful yarn pop, and that white yarn makes some of those muted colors pop. And so it's all about stepping aside from our perfection, which I am not a perfectionist at all. I love to create. I love the art part of crochet. And I've told you this all a bunch of times. My daughter, Elizabeth, that lives in Mustang, that is right by Tuttle, Oklahoma, which is part of the reason we want to move down there, because I'll be able to be with my grandkids. She is what I would call a perfectionist when it comes to technique, where I am more of an artist, and I love mixing colors and things together. One thing to remember when you're making up your crazy balls, your crazy yarn balls, it's a good idea to separate your weights and of yarns. In other words, let me grab one of these. Here's one that I have. This is a bulky number 5 yarn. I would not mix this with this, because unless I'm doing one that is 2 or 3 strands, then I might do that. Another thing to remember is your fibers. You don't want to mix your wool medium number 4s with your cotton number 4s, because they're going to wash differently. Wool is going to felt on you and shrink. And so you need to be careful of that when you're making these crazy yarn balls to use for your scrap yarns. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't do it, okay? It just means you need to be aware that you're not going to be able to wash that and have it turn out exactly the same. Your animal fibers felt, you know, your like your wool, your actual lamb's wool or sheep's wool. Some of your alpacas wash up a little bit different also. And of course, your acrylics and cottons wash up different as well. And so you need to keep that in mind when you're making all of these leftover crazy yarn balls to use. The key to all of this, though, is really just to have some fun and be frugal. You know, we talked about the granny squares last week and why they were called granny squares, because grannies made them and they were frugal. And that is another thing that is fun to make, of course, with your leftover yarns. But also, you know, every yarn is expensive, and everything is expensive. And our yarn is it's priceless to us. To me, the yarn behind me is more priceless than a lot of expensive things that I own, because it's my paint for my canvas, for the art that I do, and art is priceless. You know, and those of us who love the art of crochet and knitting and yarn and fiber arts understand this. And so those little bits and pieces, a lot of times, if they're too small, you know, I will throw them away. But we can make lots of beautiful, wonderful things out of those. And I have taken yarns that I thought, like I said, would never, ever even go together, and made beautiful pieces of useful art. You can never have too many shopping bags. You can never have too many baskets. You can never have too many scarves. But also, you know, when you make something and you give it away, and the person that you give it to is impressed by not just the colors and not just how pretty it is, but the artistic ability of you that they're expressing, that is amazing. It always makes me feel wonderful. My mom was always really, really appreciative of things I made her, because she was not artsy. I think I got most of my artsiness from my grandmother. My grandmother used to tat. I remember that. And if you've never done tatting, it's very intricate work. And I can't do, I used to do some of it. I used to do cross stitch and embroidery, but with the arthritis in my fingers, I can't do those little tiny needles anymore. But all of these things are art. And I think sometimes when we think of art, we think of paintings, which there are a lot of beautiful paintings. And I do love learning about painting and art in that way. But there's sculpting and carving and lots of different aspects of art. And we need to remember that crochet and fiber arts is art. And it's always, I always say this, it's always changing, new yarns, new crochet hooks, new techniques, and get in there and just learn, and have so much fun doing that. And a lot of that is with these leftover yarn balls. And of course, that's our theme for the year, our scrap, I want to make sure I say this right. Our scrap happy crochet along, and also lots of other scrap projects that we can use up a lot of those art yarns. I have some yarns that I've been afraid to use for a while because I've spent a lot of money on them, and you have to have just the right project. And so you need to, you know, get in there, use those yarns. They were made to be used and make beautiful things. All right, I'm going to scan through, see if there's any more questions. Okay, I'm trying to read fast. All right, Donna Baker says one thing she makes is pumpkins. I love that because I do that too, and I like to make them in all weird colors. It's fun. And there are tons of pumpkin patterns out there that have used different techniques and different things like that as well. And that's a really fun thing. When the holidays come around, different fall seasons and stuff, get in there and just use those things and decorate your house with all these wonderful things that you make. There's tons of little stuffies that you can make. You know, I don't want the yarn to be wasted in any way at all. I want you to use every bit of it because that's what I try to use. It's a piece of our heart. Connie says, that's right, it is. Art comes from our hearts as well. It is. It's a piece of our heart when we give something. All right. Well, that's interesting. Beaded wind socks. That's her name on here. She says it would be interesting and be a great giveaway to give away a bunch of my yarn balls. You know, I don't know that I can part with them. I love them so much. But you could. Alicia says, what yarn do you use for cozies? All of it. Cotton, acrylic. Just go and look for patterns and see what they use. Just make sure you match up the pattern, the width. Make sure you match the yarn weight with the pattern. You can use any pattern out there. Just use the same weight and the same crochet hook, and you should do just fine. All right, let's move along before my voice gives out. Let me get a little sip of coffee here with my whistle. That's something else my grandma said all the time. Wet your whistle. All right. So let's talk about what we did this week. Now, we talked about these last week. These are the double-sided, these are the flower double-sided scrubbies. And I talked about these last week because we did them on Friday. And I love these because you can do one side with the scrubby, like I did on these, and the other side with just a regular. And I like these because you don't lose them in your soapy water when you're scrubbing on some of your pans. Someone asked me, why do you keep making scrubbies? Don't you have a dishwasher? Well, do you know that until 10 years ago, I didn't. I didn't grow up with a dishwasher. I didn't have one. My kids did the dishes, and I did the dishes. But actually, there's a lot of things I don't put in my dishwasher, like a lot of my big big pots that I need to scrub and things like that. And so I like to have these. But these are also really good for scrubbing that ring around the bathtub. And I hardly ever have one except when my grandkids visit. So these are great. I love them. Okay, the other thing that we did was, I forgot to show you this. This is our Be Our Guest washcloth. It's a really neat washcloth to use. And one of the things I was talking about, someone said they don't like it because it has holes in it. But one of the things about this that is neat is it's made of cotton. And when you put cotton through the wash, it puffs up a little bit and shrinks a little bit and gets that sizing that's off the yarn. Because they put that on there to make it easier to crochet and run through the machines when they wind it. But this has those little puff stitches, or actually they're clusters. And those are nice for scrubbing your face, scrubbing the counter, or anything that you want to use this washcloth for. But to me, when I give someone a washcloth as a gift, I don't want it to just be, 20 rows of half double crochet. I want it to have a little bit of character. Well, there's Rosie. You can see she's feeling better. Anyway, and I just really love this washcloth. And again, when people stay at my home, I like to send them home with a thank you. And so I'll make a washcloth. I'll put a ribbon around it with a little thank you for staying with us. And people like that. And I get lots of requests for more of the washcloths when I do this. And again, I really prefer a cotton washcloth made like this to one you buy in the store. Okay? So this is a lot of fun. It's just a 10 by 10. And it is a really pretty washcloth. And I put a different trim. You can use whatever colors. I think these would be beautiful in some of those variegated cotton yarns that I got lately. I got them from Peaches and Cream. They have... She's back. Rosie's back. Anyway, we did this last week. And then yesterday we did this bag. And I love this bag. This is just a basic little round bottom mesh bag. Perfect for when you travel to put your socks in so you don't lose your socks. I'm telling you, every time I go and visit my grandkids or every time we go take a trip somewhere, I get home, I'm doing the laundry, and I've lost a sock or two. Every time. And it's usually mine, not my husband's. And this is a neat little thing. You could put your undies or whatever you want. Put this in your travel bag. Put your dirty clothes in here that are your lingerie type things. And then do you know what? You can take this bag. Make sure your socks are not together. Because I just put them together. Make sure they're not together. Throw them in this bag. Zip it up like this. Throw it in the laundry. And you can wash your things. And you won't lose your stuff. Especially if you're traveling and you have to use, say, a laundromat that's in a hotel or something, then you've got your socks and things and you won't lose them. This is also a great little bag for making up a bunch of those scrunchies or face wash. Put those inside. Small projects, bath toys, lots of different things that you would use a cotton bag for. It measures about 10 inches long and it's about 12 inches around. So it's a really nice size to stick in your purse, in your luggage, or anywhere you need a sock bag. Like I said, I made it for me, and I'm sharing it with you. Alrighty, so. Oh, the other thing I want to mention about the sock bag, yes, I made it out of cotton, but you can use any medium weight number 4 yarn to make this. Acrylics are fine, but I just preferred it in cotton. That way it washed up really nice. And of course, acrylics wash up nice as well. Okay. Okay, now, I think we've covered everything. All right, so let's just talk just for a brief moment of the future of my YouTube channel. I'm not going anywhere. It's so funny because we're moving to Oklahoma. I've gotten so many messages about please don't leave. Okay, so what you need to understand is I'm not going anywhere as far as our YouTube channel, our Facebook page. I'm still on Instagram and Twitter. And if you want to follow me on all of those social medias, you can click that link that's down in the notes under the video. And there's all those links down at the bottom. It says webpage, Twitter, Instagram. All those links are down there. You can just click them and follow me. The thing is, we're just moving where we're going to be filming from. The only difference that there may be is once we get down there, there's an hour time difference. And so I don't know that it will be changing the time, but there's a possibility that we could be. But I'll make sure that I give you that information, okay? But right now, we've not sold our house yet, hoping to do so this week. But then there's always, once you sell a house, there's always the inspections and paperwork and closings and all that stuff that's going to take a while. All right, so for now, there's Rosie again. She's pacing. Anyway, for now, everything is going to stay the same, except for I may do one or two less videos a week, depending on when we have people coming in and out of our home. Because I can't be doing a video if people are in here trying to see our home. All right, and then once we get settled and removed, I'm going to do videos along the way and just keep you informed of what's going on, okay? So don't panic. I got an email actually just this morning. A wonderful lady. I'm not going to say her name because it would embarrass her because she's here. I can see her. But anyway, she was in a panic because she was like, are we going to do a live video today? Are you going to be around? Is there going to be more videos? Please don't leave YouTube. And so I'm not leaving YouTube. We're still going to be here. There just might be some weird changes and things that we have to adjust to until we get completely settled again. And like I said, I will do some videos along the way, some videos of taking down, setting up, I'll keep you informed because you all are my peeps. This is my community. This is my crochet community. And you all mean the world to me because remember, like I always say, I cannot do any of this without all of you watching. That I would be talking to myself, right? Which I'm sure I've done. Alrighty, so that's all I've got for you today. We're gone a little bit long, but that's okay. And don't worry. I will see you next week, all right? Bye-bye, everybody.